From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now! We're broadcasting live from Copenhagen. Climate Countdown.
Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, a warm welcome to Copenhagen and to the opening of the United Nations Climate Change Conference 2009.
Climate Countdown. Democracy Now! Is broadcasting from inside the UN Climate Conference for the next 2 weeks, where thousands of delegates from over 190 countries are gathered for the largest climate summit in history.
My name is Juma. I'm from Malawi.
I'm Titus Damini. I'm from Swaziland.
Yeah, my name is Samuel Naikada, and I'm from Kenya. I have come here for the conference for climate change.
Then a roundtable discussion with Bangladeshi-born scientist Salimul Haq. The Nation magazine says he's done more to help poor people and countries prepare for climate change than perhaps anyone else in the world. From the Philippines, Liddy Nakpo, the international coordinator of Jobless South, and Tom Goldtooth, head of the Indigenous Environmental Network in the United States. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We're broadcasting live from Copenhagen, where the largest and some say most important climate summit in history has opened today. More than 100 world leaders are expected over the next 2 weeks for negotiations to replace the 1997 Kyoto Protocol. Kim Steiner of the UN Environment Program said he expects the conference to end with a binding agreement.
Those who claim that in Copenhagen a deal is impossible, they are simply wrong. You have a world summit taking place now with over 100 heads of government and heads of state coming. This is not a negotiating session. This is a meeting to complete a negotiation process that has lasted for over 2 years.
The White House has bolstered hopes of a climate deal with the announcement President Obama will attend the talks on the summit's last day. Obama had initially planned to visit Copenhagen this Wednesday before accepting the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo. But Obama will now be present as dozens of heads of state try to reach an agreement. The top UN official for the Copenhagen conference, Ivo de Boer, said he hopes Obama will hear the demands of developing nations.
I'm happy that he's coming towards the end of the conference, together with other heads of state and government. I think it's important for him to interact with them. I think it's especially important for him to hear the concerns of small island developing nations, the countries that are most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change.
Poorer nations have widely criticized the U.S. for its stated pledge of reducing greenhouse emissions by around 17% of 2005 levels. The world's top scientific body on global warming, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has called on developed countries to cut emissions by between 25 to 40%. We'll have more on the Copenhagen summit after headlines. In Bolivia, President Evo Morales has been re-elected in a landslide victory. Unofficial results show Morales won Sunday's vote with 63%. Voters also gave his movement towards socialism party a majority in both houses of the Bolivian Congress. Morales ran on a platform of continuing to expand indigenous rights and redistribute wealth from Bolivia's natural gas resources. Speaking before thousands of voters, Morales hailed his victory as a rebuke of imperial power.
El triunfo en Bolivia, que no solamente es
the victory in Bolivia is not just for Bolivians. I want to tell you, with much respect to Bolivians, that this victory, at its base, a just acknowledgement. It is dedicated to the people and anti-imperial government.
U.S. allies in NATO have pledged an additional 7,000 soldiers for the occupation of Afghanistan. The move follows President Obama's decision last week to order more than 30,000 troops. Appearing at a NATO summit in Belgium, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton stressed that the 2011 withdrawal date only marked when a troop reduction would begin.
The additional American and international troops will allow us to accelerate handing over responsibility to Afghan forces beginning in July 2011. This transition will enable us to begin a reduction of U.S. and international forces that will continue over time. Just as we have done in Iraq, we will execute this transition responsibly, taking into account conditions
the latest
on the
NATO
ground.
escalation will bring the total number of foreign troops in Afghanistan to more than 140,000. Last week, the Pentagon released figures showing over 104,000 private contractors are currently on the ground. In other Afghan war news, the Pentagon says around 12 rebel fighters have been killed since the U.S. launched a new offensive in southern Afghanistan last week. A U.S. soldier was killed in eastern Afghanistan on Saturday, bringing the U.S. troop toll this year to 301. The Western Saharan human rights activist Aminatou Haidar is risking death as she continues a hunger strike over Morocco's refusal to allow her to return to her desert homeland. Known as the Sahrawi Gandhi, Haidar has been on a hunger strike for more than 3 weeks since Moroccan officials denied her entry into Western Sahara. Morocco has demanded Haidar recognize Moroccan sovereignty over her homeland and apologize to the king. Haidar's doctor says she may only have days to live if her hunger strike continues. On Friday, Spain and Morocco reached a deal for Haidar's return, but Moroccan officials reneged shortly before her plane was due to leave. Shortly before she was scheduled to depart, Haidar thanked a cheering crowd for their support.
I thank all the free and noble people who gave me support in Guajimeta Lanzarote Airport.
The Spanish government has reportedly backed off its pressure on the Moroccan government and is now preparing to force-feed Haidar. Haidar's supporters are calling on the Spanish government to put her on a commercial flight to the Western Sahara and adopt a tougher stance against the Moroccan government. You can go to our website at democracynow.org for our coverage of her case. The Iranian government is cracking down on foreign journalists as well as domestic internet use ahead of an annual student rally. Foreign correspondents have been ordered to remain in their offices today. Tehran residents, meanwhile, say their internet access has been limited, with curbs on websites loyal to the Iranian political opposition. In Greece, clashes erupted between police and protesters this weekend at rallies marking the first anniversary of the police killing of a teenage boy. The fatal shooting of 15-year-old Alexandros Grigoropoulos set off Greece's worst unrest in over 30 years. On Sunday, Greek police fired tear gas at protesters as they marched in Athens and other cities. The Pentagon has resumed trying foreign prisoners before military commissions at Guantanamo. The commissions began last week for the first time since their suspension after President Obama took office. Congress expanded prisoners' rights in October, but critics say the system still falls short of meeting the Geneva Conventions. The Obama administration, meanwhile, appears to have settled on an Illinois prison to hold dozens of foreign prisoners once Guantanamo is closed. The Washington Post reports the Obama administration intends to assume control of the Thompson Correctional Center by late winter. Meanwhile, the former chief military prosecutor at Guantanamo has been fired from a congressional position over his recent criticism of the military commission system. Retired Air Force Colonel Morris Davis was working as assistant director at the Congressional Research Service until his dismissal last week. Last month, Davis published criticisms of the Obama administration plan to try some prisoners in federal courts while others before military panels. Davis has been a vocal critic of military commissions since resigning as Guantanamo's top prosecutor in 2007. The nation's official unemployment rate has fallen to 10%, down from 10.2% in October. Speaking at the White House Friday, President Obama said the change signifies an improving economy.
There are going to be some months where the reports are a little better, some months where the reports are worse, but the trend line right now is good. The direction is clear. When you think about how this year began, even before I was sworn in, and we were losing 700,000 jobs a month. Today's report's a welcome sign that there are better days ahead.
Despite the drop, labor economists